All right, we are recording. All right, so for today's demonstration, I am going to show you how to add some extra things to your dimensioning knowledge. Specifically, we're going to be going over center marks, center lines, how to use the break function, dim break, as well as the symbols TYP and SYM and what those mean. Now, the reason I didn't do this dimension demo before is because I feel like I gave you so many dimension rules all at once. It was a lot to process. Also, these things didn't really apply to drawings 1 to 6. However, the things that I'm going to show you today do apply to drawing 13 and 14, which is why like some of you finished drawing 13 and 14 and you wanted to hand it in, but I needed you to wait till you could see these things. So these are all going to make your dimensioning a little bit more eloquent, less messy, just like more sophisticated, I guess. So it's not necessarily dimensioning rules. A couple things are rules that we have to follow, and the other things are more just like eloquence, neatness, keeps your page clean, that kind of thing. So to get started, the first thing I'm going to address is holes. So in this drawing, this is drawing 14. One of the assignments in drawing 14. I don't know why my title block says drawing 1. Ignore that. In drawing 14, this has a hole. So that's what you see here. You see a circle, and then you see the side profile that it goes all the way through. That means this is a hole. That's what those hidden lines are. So to annotate that appropriately, we do this in the layout. We don't do this in model space. We do this in paper space. You're going to go to your layers, first of all, and make sure that you're in your dimensioning layer, which I am. And then you're going to go to annotate, and then you have some, oh, hang on. Not annotate. I think I need to make this big. There we go. Annotate toolbar. Here we go. There's a section here for center marks and center lines, like right next to in the annotate tab. So we're not going from home to the little tiny annotation toolbar. We're going to the annotate toolbar. And then there's one specifically for center marks and center lines. These are like must have with holes, not like good to have, like must have, ANSI standard, you need these. So with a hole, when you're looking at it where it looks like a circle, you're going to put a center mark. So like you literally just click the center mark button and then click the circle and it generates a center mark. Now, this is where I can often tell if you haven't set up your dim style, that's your standards page, because the center mark will either be too tiny or it will be like way too big. The other thing is it'll look funny if you're like linked into your model space. So if you're like double clicked into your model space, then your center marks are going to look really funny. Oh, I'm like frozen for some reason. Okay, here we go. The next one is a center line. Again, this is a must-have with a hole. So a hole that goes through, you're going to need a center line. So all you do is you click the center line command, and then you click the two like opposing sides of the hole. So click, oops, click, and it makes a center line. If it's a little bit longer, it ends up looking like a line with a dash and then another line. Now we made a layer called center. Before these commands existed, you had to use, question? I think you have your headphones in, you're talking real loud. Take your headphones out. There you go, everybody heard you just now. Before these commands existed, you had to use the center layer and then you had to like manually draw a line, but now these commands exist, so we just go into our dim layer and we do them. This is very simple, but it's going to help you for dimensioning in that it's going to give you a place to click to dimension like where the center of the hole is located. So we have center mark and center line. Again, must have with holes and circles. They are not necessary with just an arc. So like this arc does not need a center mark. I don't need that information. But this hole does need a center line. So we've talked about center marks and center lines. I'm going to talk to you next about break. So a break is used in dimensions where you have to cross dimensions and there's like no way around it. Like there's no other place to put them and the dimensions are crossing. There's nothing you can do about it. So the example that I'm going to use isn't a very good one because I'm going to show you a circumstance where you can avoid it, but oops, I don't want that. I want linear. So I don't know. How are we going to do this? I guess I'll just start kind of dimensioning this, how we would dimension everything. So first I'm going to do my overall length. Why are you not going to tangent? Let's see here. Let's go to quadrant. There we go. So I got my overall length and we'll do overall width. And now you're like, oh, Mrs. D, it's between the object and the border. Well, there's like no other view. There's no view up here. There's no view over here. So like ultimately some of our dimensions are going to be between the object and the border because there's no top view. And that was the other thing, is some people were starting to like try to assume and draw a third view. You don't have enough information to do that. They haven't given you like enough information to generate a third view. So don't generate a third view. Just draw the views that they give you. So overall length, overall width, overall height. So you can do overall height like this, maybe, and put it over here. Okay, so we got these. Let's start putting in some like kind of crucial information. So like, let's say we need to put a dimension here. Now, let's say for some reason we like had to cross. Again, this is wrong. You don't cross them like this. But let's just say it was totally unavoidable and there was nothing that I could do to avoid this. There's a command called dim break. And what that does is it just puts like a little space between the dimensions. So it's as simple as just typing in dim break, DIMBREAK, enter. And then you click the two dimensions that are crossing, and then it puts in this like nice little space like that. So they're not crossing anymore, and you can tell that there's a distinction between two dimensions, and it doesn't just look like intersecting lines. Now, again, this is an incorrect use of dim break, but I don't know that I can come up with the top of my head with the correct use of dim break at the moment. Other things to point out, in your dimension or in your assignment, it is dimensioned incorrectly. So I want to make that clear. So the dimensions given here in some cases are just straight up wrong. Like, I think it's, which one is it? The one with the deep V, that one. That one has like just like a straight up an error in the number, but also the dimension placement. So I don't want you copying this. So one of the examples is there's a section here where it like points and says radius 0.25 both. Okay, there's no standard that you just write radius 0.25 both. Like it's not any kind of typical notation. So I'll show you how to dimension. If you have like 2 or 3 of the same thing, you can't just say both or all. There's like specific terminology that you use for that. So that's where we come in with like the TYP and SYM. So let's start by dimensioning one of these radiuses. So we'll pick one. We'll go to our dimension. Instead of linear, we'll go to radius. And we'll pick like, I don't know, this one. And I need to change, it says radius 0. Duh, not right. The assignment has 2 decimal places. So I'm just going to go into my dim style and change that to have 2 decimal places. Decimal 1, 2. Okay, close. There, that makes a little bit more sense. So I'm going to move this so it's not intersecting with things. Oh yeah, don't be like that. Being annoying. Okay, hang on. Okay, new plan. Let's dimension the other one. Then they're not crossing. How about that? This one. Oh, wow, look, it's the same. Okay. Modify, move you. Sure, that's fine. Okay, so this is telling me that this has a radius of 0.25. Now, we know that this also has a radius of 0.25. And I've used the radius command. I didn't use a leader and then type this in. So rather than like drawing in like a janky arrow to like add this on, or typing in same, or typing in some other terminology, there is a standard terminology. So the standard terminology is TYP, which is short for typical. What that means, what typical means, is any dimension that looks like this is this value. So if you put a radius 0.25 and you double click that, you can actually edit it. So I'm going to edit this to say space, actually enter, all capitals TYP. What that means is like, again, any dimension that looks like this is the same. So this is 0.25, this is 0.25. Is that 0.25? I don't remember. Let's look. I don't think it is. That's radius 0.5. So that's different. So we have to dimension that. So this is a really nice annotation if you have multiples of the same thing. So TYP is really good for like, if you have a whole bunch of holes, let's say there's like 3 holes in an assignment. So let's look at something else. So maybe like, here we go. This one has 2 holes. So instead of saying diameter 0.46 times 2 holes, you would just put diameter 0.46 TYP, typical, which means any hole that looks like this has this diameter. Or like this assignment, it says all radiuses fill at 0.25. No, you would just dimension one of them and then put TYP, typical. which means that all of them are the same. So again, this information is given to you in a way that you can draw it, but it's not given like in a dimension style that is ANSI standard. So like one of the biggest mistakes with drawing 13 and 14 is that students just copy the dimensions and the dimension placement onto their assignment. Like, what's the point of drawing? I don't need to see if you can draw lines. I want to see if you can like digest the information that I've given you about how to dimension and can actually like apply it to an assignment. So please don't just copy the assignment and the dimension placement and everything, because it's not correct. So that's TYP. TYP is for like radiuses or diameter of a circle, or if you had like, I don't know, a feature that was repeated a couple times in your drawing, that's when you would use TYP. There's another symbol, SYM. SYM is meaning symmetrical. So first of all, the item has to be symmetrical, which means that it's like mirrored from one side to another. This item is not symmetrical, so we wouldn't use the term SYM. However, something like, let's look at our model space. There are items on here that are symmetrical. So like, I don't know, this one, for example. This top view is symmetrical, and the center line would like split all the way down the middle. So it means that this side is the same as that side. Or what else? This one, symmetrical. This one's symmetrical, I believe. Yeah, symmetrical across the center line. So what you could do in this circumstance, so like, let's do that. So let's go to here, drawing 14, and I'm going to get rid of this. Bye-bye. Click, and let's go over to this one. So fast. It's like I set myself up for success or something. Okay, the scale is kind of small, but whatever, bear with me. We'll do 1 to 2. So first thing, let's apply what we just learned about dimensioning and stuff, and we're going to put some center marks. So I'll put center marks on these right away, and then I'm going to do a center line on here, and then a center line on here. Boom. Done did. Okay, that's done. So we'll move into dimensioning. Once you've finished your overall length, overall width, overall height, I just want to show you kind of how you would do this. So this object is symmetrical across the center. So in a situation where you would use the term SYM, would be potentially something like this. So maybe you told me at one point that the dimension from here to here is 0.6. Well, this dimension is also 0.6 down here, from here to here. So you have kind of like two options. You can either tell me 2 times, which like gets messy when you have to add like a whole bunch of other dimensions, or you can do this. You can get rid of this one, and then you can just add SYM to this one. So that's telling me that this dimension is symmetrical. And if you look at the object, you can see that it's symmetrical across the center, which means that that dimension would then be the same thing. Having said that, you could also do this. So you could dimension from here to here. Oh, I don't want aligned. Go away. Linear. You could dimension from here to here. This dimension is also symmetrical across. So we could do this, same thing, SYM. And it'll fit it in as necessary. Maybe it has to pop out, whatever. You can move these around after. Like if this is in your way, you can just click it and drag it up here. You can move them around kind of like as you please. This is important. So what often happens is the assignment starts to get cluttered and students omit dimensions. Now you can't just dimension these two and not put SYM and then not dimension the bottom. In which case you're just assuming, you're making an assumption that the person knows that they're the same. They don't know that they're the same. Like you have to tell them that they're the same. They have no way of knowing with their laser eyes and making measurements. Like you have to tell them. So this dimension is the same as that. Now, this diameter is the same as that diameter. You would not use symmetrical. So symmetrical is really just for like distance measurements and lengths. Typical is used for like radiuses and diameters. So if we go into our dimension and we want to dimension diameter, we'll dimension this circle. This circle has the same diameter as that circle. We know that. So we would go click, click, and then we would add in TYP to this one. So in a way, at this point, it looks kind of like it's getting cluttered because there's a lot of words. However, it's much less cluttered than duplicating all of these dimensions, or than adding notes like floating around your page that just like give you random information about circles. So this is like the ANSI standard. This is like the standard way of doing this. It's not standard to just like write random notes around the page like this one where it's like all radiuses are like, this is not standard to just put like random notes around the assignment. If you have official notes, they go under your notes. They don't just get like pasted all over. But just using a symbol like TYP, this is simple enough. You don't have to clog up your notes for like this information that only applies to 2 circles. And then same as this, adding SYM. And what I mean by symmetrical, like some people sort of struggle with this, but that's where an object, oh, and this just won't generate a center line. This is where an object is like mirrored, for example, like it has perfect symmetry across a mirror line. This one is symmetrical across the horizon, the center of the item. It's the same on one side as the other side. So this is like kind of pertinent information in a situation like this. You wouldn't use SYM in a shape that isn't symmetrical. So we talked about center mark, center line, using break, TYP, and SYM. I'll show you dim break one more time, just because I can. So that's again where you have dimensions that are crossing that you cannot avoid crossing them. This is not a very good example, again, because these dimensions are wrong, but for the purposes of dim break, excuse me, it would be dim break, excuse me, DIMBREAK, enter, and click, oh, it doesn't want to dim break because it's across the words, but let's pull them differently then. Fine, computer, you win. Linear, here to here. There we go. There we go. So it puts like a little break between the two. It looks much nicer than having dimensions crossing. Again, this isn't a perfect example of where dimensions would cross. I think there are probably better places where you can figure that out, because these ones shouldn't be crossing. But if you absolutely cannot avoid it and they have to cross, please use the dim break command. Outside of that, one common mistake I noticed in the assignments that you handed in is that your formatting for notes was incorrect. So I just want to go over this again. It's notes, plural, means it has an S. There's no punctuation, there's no colon, there's no nothing. And then underneath that, it's just all dimensions in inches. That's it. Or millimeters, or whatever the unit is that you're using, but there's no punctuation, there's no underlines. It's not note singular, it's notes, because that's where the notes go. I think that's fairly straightforward. Please remember to update your title block with every assignment. So making sure you're updating the date, you're updating the sheet, and you're updating the scale. In this case, this drawing is in scale 1 to 2, so I updated my title block to 1 to 2, but please make sure that you're doing that. Also, please make sure that you're actually looking at the things I hand back to you, because I make notation saying things like, please fix this, please fix that. My assumption at that point is that you are going to fix that moving on for your future assignments, and you're not going to make the same mistake. If you do make the same mistake on future assignments, I will continue to penalize you, meaning you will still lose marks. So please actually look at the things I hand back to you. If you don't understand the notes that I make, please ask me. I'd be happy to come explain it to you. But what I'm trying to do by giving you that feedback is avoid you making the same mistake a whole bunch of times. For example, on your last assignment, I only took off like a mark or two if you made a mistake on your notes on every assignment, meaning if it was 6 pages, you made the same mistake 6 times, I only took off 1 mark. Your next assignment, I'm going to take off 6 marks if you make the same mistake 6 times, because I've already corrected that once. I've already explained it to you. I'm not going to be as like gentle with my assessment. So please do look at the things I hand back, not just the mark, but the actual like notes that I make about the mistakes. If you don't understand, ask. That's that. Any questions about this, about TYP, SYM, center mark, center line, any of the above? All right, if there's no questions, please get to work. I'm going to end the recording.